Good morning. This is the chart of the week. And the dollar is everything. And when it comes to the dollar, actually the euro is everything. The euro-dollar relationship is quite important for the world. It is the bloodline of liquidity across the globe. So it is very important where the euro goes and where the dollar goes. And the dollar actually takes up 57.6% of the Dixie. The Dixie is a basket of various currencies, and the vast majority of that is then taken up by the euro, as you can understand, with 57.6%. In January of this year, we saw how everybody was so bullish the dollar. We saw how the euro dollar, which we're looking at here, had been declining, and everybody was talking about how the dollar would just keep continuing up. And we then saw a reversal. And actually, this was something I did call at the time, expecting things to change, because we saw some of the indications that we see into a bottom, which is that we see rising divergence here, or divergence on the RSI with into a bottoming process here. See, that was January, and now we can fast forward to where we are today. We are now in October. And we have had a quite strong rally in the euro-dollar index, which means that the dollar has been declining. And now we get the sentiment in the opposite direction. And let me just show you what that looks like. Because when we look at sentiment here, this is the euro sentiment, and this is versus the dollar. We can see how it actually was in the gutter here back in January. We were down here at these levels here. And we can then see, and this is sentiment we have here, and we had the price was down there. Now, we now see this rise and this strong rally in the dollar, in the euro versus the dollar. And we've seen how the sentiment has now come up at the opposite end. And we see here, over here, where we have other tops for the euro. These were smaller tops for the euro at that point. This time, however, if we go to the chart again, I think we may be looking into a much, much larger top for the euro versus the dollar. And I think we are getting very close to it. First of all, we have, after the January bottom here, we have had what is called a full count, almost a full count. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we are into the fifth wave, which is subdividing, which is normal what we see. We actually also saw some of that into this bottom here, but that's for another day. Also, we see how the RSI has been starting to show a negative divergence with the tops. And we can clearly see how MACD here is showing us that this was where we had the strongest force behind it, and now the force is actually waning. So in the Elliott wave terms, we can actually see that there's potentially one more push in the euro, higher versus the dollar, but that will be potentially the final one. And if we go back to the chart of the sentiment, well, we see also that the sentiment is quite high. At this point, we are a little down, but with one more push, we could get back up to the levels which we normally see at a peak in the euro. So I actually think we are at the cusp here of a very, very big turn. And now I've just shown it with this chart here, and it seems like, well, what is this? It's just back to January. In the bigger scheme of things, this is actually a much, much larger top for the euro, and which tells us that the dollar should start to strengthen quite considerably going from, let's see whether it's going to be late October or into November, but at some point in this time here, maybe from around 119.6 or maybe even up to 121 here. We could also see that, but we should see that top coming in somewhere here, and then a very, very stark decline in the euro versus the dollar, which means that the Dixie is going to strengthen quite considerably. And that is one thing the world does not like. Why? Because when the dollar strengthens, then the debt in the world, which is 60-70% of all debt in the world, is denominated in dollars. So when dollar goes up, that debt becomes more heavy for the people that actually holds it. And that is why a strong dollar is not a positive thing or a bullish things for the markets. So we need to be careful when we get to this point here with the euro, because that could signal a large reversal in the dollar, and that the dollar could start its very strong rally that I'm expecting it to do into 26. That is all for today, and I'll be back next time. Thank you.